I recently was asked to find one new thing to try and use to make my teaching better. I was asked this question while at the GAFE Summit in Cincinnati, Ohio. During that 2-day experience, I was able to be exposed to many new ideas about technology and my teaching. Everything I witnessed and saw made me think about how to better incorporate technology in my classroom in order to make my teaching more effective. Gone are the days of students sitting in rows and working on worksheets. Now, classrooms are interactive and students move around to work cooperatively. In my school, students are one-to-one, with all students having a Chromebook of their own to carry throughout the school year. That level of technology is great, but it is ineffective if it's not utilized correctly. I began to think about how to better engage my students with technology. It was after a session about hyperdocs and flipping your classroom that I was inspired to try to find a way to engage students and best use my class time productively. What better way than flipping my classroom? How can hyperdocs and slide decks help engage learners? If I could create lessons with hyperlinks and interactive activities for the students to work within, I could be free to pull students to work in small groups, solidifying their learning. By front-loading their learning on a slide deck and embedding it on Schoology, the students could experience their learning and complete practice activities that would allow me to see what they were understanding as they worked. I decided to try this out on the topic of main idea. I spent some time creating a slide deck presentation that had many links and interactive experiences for the students to work on. The first step was to pre-assess. I created a Google Form assessment with example passages and questions to see where the students were in their understanding. From this, I was able to see that for many, this lesson would be review, but for a handful, I would need to engage them on a deeper level in small group reteaching. The first day after the pre-assessment was given, I spent some time introducing the students to the idea of the slide deck presentation. I shared the lesson with them on Schoology and walked them through the expectation. As we made our way through the slide deck, I shared several videos that were embedded inside the lesson that the students needed to access to front-load their understanding and that would be available to review as needed. Also, to front-load their understanding and to access as needed, several anchor charts were added to the lesson. These included some graphic representations to connect their thinking. I also embedded links to thinking partners that the students would use throughout the lesson several times. This allowed me to choose who the students were working with so that activities and interactions could be differentiated within the lesson. There were 4 main tasks for the students to complete, 2 with a partner and 2 alone. The first task involved reading some passages and discussing the main idea as they recorded it. Another task involved participating in some interactive games online that were about main idea. This was an independent task. Still another task with a partner involved task cards. The last task had the students watching a video and then recording their main idea of the video on a Google form embedded inside the lesson. Students who finished early were able to extend their understanding by showcasing their learning as if they were a teacher with their partner. An example of a choice was to create a lesson of their own with a text and Padlet. Another option was to create a slideshow or a poster, or they could use other technology to come up with an idea of their own. These lessons were put in a folder on Schoology to be shared with everyone. The plan is to take a day in the near future after several have been accumulated and let students look at and work on the activities their peers have come up with. Wonderful thing about this lesson time, as I called it, was that while the students were working on it each day for about 20 to 25 minutes, I was able to pull students for interventions on the topic, main idea. In future lessons, I plan to also pull small groups for enrichment opportunities. Also, the pre-assessment and post-assessment data that was collected provided evidence of student understanding. Another thing that was positive is that the entire time that the students were working, they were engaged. Conversations were about the topic that we were discussing, and the students were enthusiastic to work on the tasks. The implications of using these types of lessons to engage students in my classroom could be massive. By allowing students to use class time exploring activities that otherwise I would be leading them through, it allowed me to use my time working with students on their strengths and weaknesses. Also, the students could move and work at their own pace. An understanding that I had after students had worked through the lesson was that some students might not finish everything. That has to be okay because they were able to dig deeper into the tasks that they did complete. Also, providing extension opportunities at the end helped to challenge my students who had only needed review. Overall, the students were very engaged. They were also using technology in a variety of ways. I felt that at the end of each lesson time, the students had all worked hard and learned, and I had worked hard to touch more students personally. In the future, I think this type of hyperlinked slide deck lesson might be a great way to encourage students to be engaged in their learning. I count this one new thing a success.